Hello and welcome to A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. Stick with us a couple of seconds and I will tell you the 10 things that we learned from our 6 recons this last summer.
And we're back. Please take a moment now to give us a like, thumbs up, and share this video with your friends. Let them know we're live right now so they'll join us in the chat room. Subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications when we go live or release a new video. Now it's time for housekeeping. Thank you to our moderators, Jimmy Fast, Joel Lewicki, Jason Eunice, Brian Eagle, and Eric Schmidt. Today's presentation will be followed by an open Q&A, so you can ask anything you'd like to know. Any burning questions about the hunt for treasure or what's going on with A Gypsy's Kiss?
Jonah Jones is back in the UK. He's finished his vacation.
Oh, we should do a all about you guy so we don't hear about his...
Oh, that's a good idea. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
Because they traveled for a month.
Yeah. So he's probably got a lot of stories to tell.
Jono, I think you have already, but if you haven't, fill out the questionnaire at questionnaire.agypsyskiss.tv so that we can do it. It's all about you and your travels with your family all the way from the UK. Are you done with housekeeping?
Mm-hmm.
So today we wanted to talk about our summer recon recap. The 10 things that we learned from being out in the field this summer. So we feel like we had a really intelligence gathering summer. We learned more not only about our strategies, but a little bit about ourselves as we became more in tune with the search and the poem. And we found out about our search area, and all of it was good. And so we thought we'd share with you the top 10 things that we learned from the recons that we took this last year. But
wait, there's more.
I'm going to tell you about the recon. So the first recon we took was back in late March. Shelley and I went up to Cimarron Canyon for a couple of days. Well, actually, it wasn't a couple of days. It was supposed to be a couple of days. But then we bumped into Ranger Steve. And Ranger Steve was the one that straightened me out about the difference between warm waters, trout waters, and special trout waters, and ruined my solution. There's nothing that'll ruin a solution faster than anything
than facts.
Than facts. So disappointed as we were, we still had time to spend. We spent time in Taos. We had a really good trip. Of course, all these photos, by the way, are in our blog at gypsyskiss.com. Click on the photo album button or our photos button, and that'll take you to our photo albums that have all these pictures in them for each of these recons. So then I had a meltdown on YouTube. It wasn't really a meltdown. But
No.
All right. And spent the next month or so recalibrating a solution, and we came up with a new one, and that took us to the Rio de los Pinos. Now, the Rio de los Pinos is in northern New Mexico. That scene that you see right there is actually in southern Colorado for the infamous Forest Road 103, which, honestly, Kevin has memorized every inch of that forest road. And we were stopped by snow, and the reason we decided to stop is that we were in a rental vehicle. I had rented a 4-wheel drive vehicle, and I didn't want to put it at risk. We thought we could make it down. This image doesn't do that, the slope on that road justice. It was pretty steep, and we felt like we wouldn't have any trouble getting down, but we were worried about whether or not we could get back up. So that was as far as we got towards our solution. Then, just 1 month, was it 1 month? Yeah. About a month later, we went back again, and this time we went back because we wanted to get some footage. We wanted to get to Osher Station. I said it right?
Yeah.
Osher Station, get some footage there, some of which you'll see in today's outro. And we wanted to get some drone footage, and that's when we met Lane and the folks from the LDS Church in southern Colorado there, and he brought us across the river on those Polaris vehicles, and then Lane took us all the way to what we knew from Google Earth was our launch point. You can actually see it here, but this is the point at which we take down into the canyon down. Eventually, 500 feet further, we reach our warm water halt, and then 45 minutes later, we reach our search location. Then we went back at the end of June, a month later approximately, and this time we got to our search location, and the waters were low enough, as you could see. This is when we started realizing what we were imagining the possibilities to be here. And this pretty much convinced us that we were, as usual, what do they call it? Confirmation bias, that we were in the right location. We were happy with it. Then that was number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Then number 5, we went back, but this time we took Christy Angelo, who was a journalist from HuffPost. I guess, we warned him that the danger of writing an article about Fenn is that they're all the same. Old guy hit a treasure, rich guy hit a treasure, people are looking for it, some have died, but it's still out there. And so we never actually saw the article. So we're wondering if it just didn't have the story to it that we wanted. Although we thought we were a pretty good story ourselves. And he listened to all my stories. He was with us in a car from 6 in the morning till 9 in the evening. So he heard every story that I've told 100 times before. But we did some more searching. He actually went across the river. He just bounded across the river, and had a look on the other side and confirmed what we already knew. And that was there's lots of places there to hide a treasure. What we need is a blaze at this point. So we decided we'd go back and look for a blaze, ignoring everything between the first 2 clues and the last. That's us. We hid a Fenn medallion while we were there the last time. And although we were there from the 20th to the 24th inclusive, we only spent 1 day really searching. We spent the other 4 days, or the other 4 days, fishing. Because we wanted to make a vacation out of it. And that actually turned out to be one of the top 10 things that we learned this last summer. Anything to add to that? Do you remember anything that I left out?
No.
So I just need to refresh Okay, so here we go with the top 10 things that we learned from our summer recon season, beginning with number 10 and working our way down to number 1 and the most important. So the first thing that we learned is that when you're roasting marshmallows for s'mores, the first batch, if you will, of marshmallows is a flinger. And what I mean by that is there's no sticky stuff on the marshmallow roasting thing, whatever you're using. We use hangers. But there's no sticky stuff on there. So what happens is it starts spinning as you're trying to spin it. It loses any grip that it has, and it starts kind of melting down, and eventually you have to make a choice of allowing it to fall into the fire or flinging it off into the forest, or wherever you're at. So that we call those flingers, and the arrow points to, I chose not to fling it off into the forest. I just allowed it to drop into...
Well, it was on fire. So
yeah, it was
probably
definitely.
not been a good
and that's what
idea.
happens, because it doesn't spin. It just heats up and it starts on fire. But once you have the sticky stuff on the marshmallow roasting stick, then the following batches of marshmallows do not spin. So you've got to sacrifice those first 2. No, they
Mine spun.
well,
and
you were
it's the what,
third batch.
fourth?
Oh.
Fourth batch.
Maybe
Fifth,
it's just in this, the difference in style.
Well, when they get soft, they tend to pull away from the hanger for some reason.
Yeah. So
That's why people use sticks, but then you've got dirty stick stuff in there.
it's okay. So s'mores part of the beauty of s'mores is that you can expect there's going to be detritus in it somewhere.
Not if you make them in the microwave.
Well, that's true. I don't make them in the microwave. Okay, so that's lesson number 10 that we learned. So just be cautious when you're flinging them. Don't necessarily aim them at anyone.
Or fling them if you're on fire. Don't fling fire.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going to go.
You don't know where it's going to go. Thing we learned, number 9, if you turn your search effort into a vacation and not just a recon, it's a lot less painful, a lot less disappointing if you don't find the treasure. So that's what we found out from our last one. We had a great, we come back from that one. Yes, we didn't find the treasure. Or no, we didn't find a treasure. Which one is it? Yes, we did not find a treasure. But we had a great time, and it was a wonderful end to our summer, even though we didn't catch any fish. But we explored a lot of both northern New Mexico and southern Colorado, and it was just a lot of fun. And the best thing about it, it's someplace that we want to go back to, whether we're searching for treasure or not. And it was just a lot of fun. And usually when we're driving home from a recon, our conversation is about, what did we do wrong, and why aren't we finding this, and let's go kidnap Forrest and ask him to tell us where the treasure is. No, we don't actually do that. But this time it was about how much fun we had. I mean, we had a really, really great time. We're going to do that again. As a matter of fact, that's all we're going to do from now on. When we go to recon, go to our search area, it's going to be a vacation, not just a recon. So, lesson number 8, everybody should have lunch at Osher Station at least once in their lifetime. It's kind of a neat thing to do. It's where the two trains, as they cross paths, one headed from Chama to Antonito, the other headed from Antonito to Chama, stop there. They serve a cafeteria-style lunch to all the passengers on the train. It's $13, cash only. They don't take checks or credit cards, credit or debit cards.
I imagine if you bought your train tickets, it's included in the train price, because they don't pay for it when they get there.
Oh.
This is just for extra people.
Okay, so we were always extra people, and that was the time we went with Chris, and he enjoyed it. You have a choice of 2 entrees, meatloaf or turkey, and then the side dishes are like the meatloaf is mashed potatoes, and the turkey is stuffing, so they have matching. Then downstairs they have desserts and salads. And there's a little store in there. There's a little store, right, where you bought your crystals. They sell crystals in the store.
In the gift shop.
I mean, they sell a lot of things in the gift shop, but a lot of they do sell some crystals that Shelley bought. Number 7, I turned this into a poetic line. The treasure will not be found without putting boots on the ground. What I mean by that is Fenn, the notorious little girl from India, can get to the first 2 clues. But then Fenn says, you probably got to be boots on the ground. And if there's anything that we learned this summer, the difference between looking at this stuff on Google Earth and maps and all kinds of things and actually being boots on the ground is immense. You can't measure the difference. And so one of the conclusions that we came to is that you're not going to find this treasure by sitting at home and doing spatial calculations of some kind, whatever they are. You have to be boots on the ground. You're not going to find it otherwise. And so we're going to continue to put boots on the ground. 6 of them this summer. That's pretty good, I think. Number 6, and this was Shelley. See the treasure hidden down here? Did you guys see that I missed the treasure in this photograph? This is what we refer to as an all or nothing search, meaning you're either going to find it or you're going to spend a lot of time not finding it. And you won't know you have the winning lottery ticket because that's what it is. We all have a lottery ticket with a different number. Some of us picked our own numbers. Some of us are just going on chance and hoping to stumble over the lottery winning. But you're not even going to know whether or not you have the winning lottery ticket until you're standing directly next to the treasure. And that's what we mean by all or nothing. You can go out 100 recons, and the only one that's going to count is the one in which you find the treasure. And that's why the more times you recon, just like if you buy more lottery tickets, the more times you go out on a recon, the more you increase the probability of you finding the treasure.
And that's what, I wrote that because I was thinking about that when Fenn had said that somebody had been within 200 feet of the treasure and then didn't find it. So if you're within 200 feet of the treasure and you didn't find it, then you're probably not even recognizing the blaze. And so what can you do with that?
Yeah.
It's an all or nothing. Even if you're within 200 feet and you don't recognize or see the blaze, you still have missed it. It's all or nothing.
Yeah, it's all or nothing. It's like a lottery. You can buy the ticket. You could spend the $1, buy or $2 or whatever they are now.
You don't get anything out of being within 200 feet of it.
Yeah. You don't get anything out of being within 10 feet of it or 12 feet of it and not recovering. You just get a nice recon. if you like the area, or a nice vacation if you're fishing along the. Number 5, you can ford a river in a sedan if it's August and the sedan is a 4x4, because in order to believe that, you have to look up the definition of sedan, and that's what we did. So now ours isn't a sedan, ours is a pickup truck with a camper shell on it, but that's how it works out.
It's still 4 doors.
It is 4 doors and 2 seats, yeah. So you can ford a river in a sedan if it's August and the sedan is a 4x4. Number 4, the key criterion for hiding any treasure of significant value is seclusion. And think about this. Of all the major treasures that have been found, they are divided kind of into 2 categories: the unintentionally hidden and the intentionally hidden. And the unintentionally hidden include those, for example, Spanish galleons that were filled with gold, silver, and jewels, headed from South America after they raided, the Indians, and were on their way to the Spanish king. And then some unexpected storm would come along and sink them. So that's one kind of treasure that's out there.
It was a karma storm.
Yeah, karma storm. That's what you get for
That's what you get for
taking
stealing
from
stuff.
the natives. Yeah. The second kind of treasure is the one that was intentionally hidden, not necessarily for it to be found by having it announced in a book, but it was intentionally hidden. I went back looking, and I can't find any treasure that was hidden in a less than secluded area, whether it was intended to be found. We're looking at these new treasures that were hidden by, what's his name, Beale?
Mm-hmm.
And he hid them in secluded areas. He didn't hide them in national parks. He didn't hide them in state parks. Occasionally you'll get a small treasure, like whiskey? The one last year. Bourbon, breakfast tea and bourbon. Breakfast tea and bourbon. And he hid that in a state park, but it was a $50,000 treasure, if I remember correctly. The point that I'm trying to make, and the objective of that was to sell books. The point that I'm making is, if you're looking for a treasure of great value in an area that's not secluded, meaning that you're, parking in a parking lot at a national park, it strikes me that that's not where people hide treasures. They hide treasures in secluded areas.
Yeah. One of the 5 times we were there, there was only one time we came across people in this area.
Yeah, and that was people that had remained on just the other side of this is an image from the overlook, the bluff that overlooks the river fording and the river crossing, and they were simply at the area we called the beach. We told you about that last week. So, yeah, treasures aren't hidden in public places. They're just not. Treasures of significant value. Number 3, Too Far to Walk, The Home of Brown, and The Blaze make perfect sense only to one person, Forrest Fenn. And if you can figure him out, there's a good chance that you will figure out what these are, what Too Far to Walk, The Home of Brown, and The Blaze are. But that doesn't happen until you figure him out. And that's because he's the only one that knows what they mean.
That's why you can be within 200 feet of the treasure and not know it, because you don't know what the blaze is. Only Fenn does.
So it's one thing to claim that you figured out the blaze from the poem. It's another thing to claim that you figured out what Fenn meant when he wrote the blaze. And I think that's the key to figuring all of this out. What is it that Fenn would refer to as the blaze? Not what is the blaze in the poem, or what's the context for the blaze, or what line is it in, or that kind of stuff. It's what does Fenn think the blaze is? Because if you figure that out, you can find the blaze. But number 2, Fenn's special place isn't a place; it's a feeling. That's again our opinion. But when you get out there, you realize that it's not about a niche in a rock or a convenient cave structure with Indian Native American artifacts or petroglyphs or pictograms. It's about a feeling. And it's the feeling that he got when he was there. And what you're trying to do is see if you can either capture or emulate that feeling. And again, it's all about understanding this guy as opposed to what he wrote. So we're becoming Fenn purists. I don't know.
Pure Fenn, baby.
Pure Fenn, baby.
That place is Fenny.
Number 1, Fenn's 500 and 200-foot comments is a 10th clue that indicates it's a small-scale solution. I was interested to read that Dale Neitzel has just recently published on his blog a trip that he was making with what he referred to as a small-scale solution, not miles. I remember once Dale was on TV talking about a solution, and it started in Ojo Caliente, New Mexico, and finished in Tres Piedras, New Mexico, which is a distance of approximately 40 miles, if I remember correctly. We drive past it every time we go up to our search location. He's reduced that significantly to what he refers to as the small-scale solution. And the small-scale solution is kind of in line with what we've been talking about for a long time now, and that is the search area, the area represented by the poem is a distance of less than 1,000 feet. Because if it isn't, if it's bigger by any dimension, you're going to spend a lot of time, money, effort, and gas not being able to find it. It's got to be in a small space. And we think that 500-foot and 200-foot comments are an indication to us that what he's saying is you don't have to chase up and down, 285 in northern New Mexico for 40 miles. And it is of interest to us that both Cynthia Meacham and Dale Neitzel, who between them probably have near 200 recons in a variety of states, probably all 4 of the states, have both, as of recently, decided that it's a small, what Dale calls a small-scale solution rather than a big one. So that was number 1.
All right.
You ready to go to chat?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to go to chat. We've got some super chat out there. If you feel like donating to our project, feel free by clicking on the $ symbol at the bottom of the chat window and deciding how much you want to donate to our project. So, and we truly appreciate it. Remember that if you decide to donate anything, please ask a question. That's the point of the donation, because what happens on our side is it highlights your question and it moves it to the top of the queue. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go back to...
And just like Sea Monkeyfication did, if you will put the @ sign and a Gypsy's Kiss before you write your question, then it will highlight it for us, and we'll be able to pick it out really easily.
Yeah. Thank you for that, too. Otherwise, it just goes by. We assume that you're talking to other people in the room. Let's see. I need to go back here. I need to go back to full screen, and we'll do that, and then we'll give you the window. Okay. And we're just going to leave the window right there.
Why?
Why not?
Because you could widen it.
Well, if we widen it, then it's hard to tell.
Well, not if you move it over. Hard to tell what?
You mean like that?
Well, we don't need this screen. This is the on deck screen. So, anyway.
Okay.
Well, let's say hello to all of our friends in the chat room today. We have Joe's BHTB.
Joe changed her name. She was Fenn Treasure before. She just recently changed her ID.
All right. Well, welcome, Joe. Journeyman's here. John O'Jones is back from the UK. Suffering from jet lag. Yes, yeah. It's quite a difference flying over to Europe, isn't it? Sir Quaidum, hello. Brian Eagles here.
Hey, Brian.
Blaze Gazer. Cindy Guess. Yeah, Jan Schultz, 174. Hey. Sam Leno from London, England.
Another
Londoner.
UK community.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those.
Michael Ringler, Michigan, is in the room. JT, good afternoon. Davio 22 is here. Patricia Marin. He likes her voice, Toby. Huh. Even though it's a little gravelly today.
Yeah, it's a little bit gravelly today, but thank you. Appreciate it.
Jeremy Milstead is here. Joel Lewicki. Brian
Wow, Joel,
Eagle.
hi.
Yeah.
Haven't seen him in a while.
William Ortiz, Goldilocks, Heather Dawn, Mitzi Moore.
Yo.
Figuring Out Forrest is here from Clovis. Is that
That's Sean. That's Sean Martinez.
okay?
Okay, scrolling up.
A new name for Sean, huh? Where are we at? Figuring, does Shelley have a bottomless wardrobe? Yes, it's called Savers.
Do they have, is Savers a national chain?
I'm not sure if it is or not.
No.
I think, well, I don't know. They were in Arizona and they're here. I know they're in the Southwest, but they're a thrift store, and they sell used clothing. And I take in my old clothes and I get different ones, and so.
Alan Kay says Hamlet, but he saw the picture of you holding the skull.
The skull, yes. Yorick.
Alas, poor Yorick.
Toby or not Toby? That's the real question.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to be Toby. It's hard enough being just one of us around.
Hello, Dave Erickson and Steve Smitherman.
Did you say, hi, Davio, did we say hi? He's commenting on the whole lotto strategy. I don't see any questions.
And he also mentions that emotional twists and turns, searching for the treasure.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, I think the more you search, the more you become inured to the disappointment, and you figure it's more like, instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to find it on this one, you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to go fishing and I'm going to look for crystals and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it would be nice to find the treasure, but probably not. So by the time you're done,
so let's do some crystals.
12 different, boots on the ground, you're like, you're over it.
Michael Ringler is giving up his whistle, and he's going to wear bells next time to scare away the bears.
My grass is greener.
He went downhill right from the start there, didn't he? That did not.
Thanks, Joel, for...
Thank you, Joel, for taking care of that. Whatever it was, we didn't get that far. Minotaur Moreno, how do you know when to
lock into
a search spot, give up on it, and find a new one, or give up on the chase altogether? I don't think you do. I think it, from what I've seen,
though.
Good question. From what I've seen, it comes only with time and the pain of spending more time, effort, and money. Eventually, you just get to the point where you go like, I have no idea where this is, and I can't afford to spend more time, money, effort, and effort into it. So I think it's slow to catch up to you. I mean, you meet people like Rick McDonald, who's been, 108 trips to exactly, as I understand it, the same location, or Cynthia, who's been on hundreds, over 100 trips to several different locations, both New Mexico and now the Yellowstone area. So I don't know. I think it's like any other, I want to call it a passion, but maybe it's addiction. You either have to give it up yourself or somebody helps you to give it up when you realize this isn't going to happen. So I think everybody goes through that. I think we have the advantage of having a lot of different interests, so we can combine the search for the treasure with keeping a YouTube channel active, or fishing, or in Shelley's case, searching for crystals. So I think maybe that's part of it all, as we learned this summer, is if you don't tie it strictly to the treasure, but tie it to a vacation in which you do other things, it becomes a lot less painful, and it is more likely to me that you're going to continue looking for the treasure. We are locked into our current space now because we have some fundamental principles, and one of the under which we operate, and one of the fundamental principles is that he hid it in New Mexico. You can agree with that or disagree with that, but we believe that he hid it in New Mexico, and the place that we're in right now, it makes the most sense in terms of the definition of the various components. It's easy to find warm water, salt, and canyon down, and so it makes sense to us. And there's lots of places to hide that treasure, and there's lots of things that could be the Homo Brown, the Blaze, and what was the other one? Too Far to Walk. So I think the more and he has said, you're not going to find it on a picnic, going out on a weekend picnic, and you're not going to find it over spring break. It is going to take a consistent effort of a committed treasure hunter in order to find this treasure. And I feel like we're committed until such time that, one of us in the team says, I don't want to drive that. I don't want to make that 4-hour trip and walk around the boonies and beat off the mosquitoes and, et cetera, et cetera. It hasn't happened yet. And that's because we're combining it with other efforts and we happen to like spending time together. So, we haven't gotten to that point yet, Minotaur. But we
we have. We've written off, it's not in Lander, and it's not in Cimarron, and we've moved on. It depends on your level of confidence with where Warm Waters halt Canyon down. If you're confident that that's correct, then you'll stick with it longer.
So we've been through
Bing.
6 or 7 different solutions. The ones previous to the one we're at now have all resulted in, no, it's not here. We don't feel like this is right for whatever reasons. I could go into different reasons for them in 3 different states: Wyoming, Colorado, and New Mexico. So we look to a search spot kind of when it just doesn't feel right. I don't know how else to describe it. It doesn't have what you need in terms of the fundamental requirements of this treasure hunt in order to make it work. Browns Canyon has a lot going for it, except it's not secluded. It's as busy as any other active Colorado river with that kind of water for both fishing and rafting and hiking. There's no seclusion there. Sinks Canyon, the same thing. Beautiful area, fenny looking, but you're tripping over each other. Other hikers, other campers, other picnickers, other fishermen, other rafters when you're there. So there's nothing secluded about it. So where we're at meets a lot of the fundamental principles. We've still got to figure out how the clues fit in, but it meets the fundamental principles, and I think that's why we're sticking with it. We're not ready to give that up.
Do the 1999 there.
So we got a super chat from Craig Carter, and he asks the question, AGK, do you still believe in Forrest's gut feeling that will be found this year? If you look back at one of our videos earlier in the year, soon after he made that, we didn't pick up on that then. We didn't think he was saying anything of significance because of the definition of gut feeling. So we never have, and we don't to this point. We do not believe that it's going to be found this summer.
I think, we decided it was for marketing.
Yeah.
And I think most people agreed. Okay, then we're all talking about Oak Island, and Paul Ammon says, all my recons have counted to me in some special way. The thrill is if I find the treasure chest.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Toby says, drive our cars across rivers. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
In August, and make sure they're 4-wheel drive.
Jan Schultz says, I recall Forrest Fenn saying that if a person knew the home of Brown, that they would go right to the treasure, so I wouldn't worry about the blaze.
Yeah.
Well, my point of the blaze was if the guy who was within 200 feet of it didn't see a blaze, then who was going to see the blaze? So should we?
See, look, Patricia Marin speaks in Spanish. No, do it to them.
Oh.
Yes. Cada vez que manejo de regreso a casa después de mi búsqueda, tengo un panorama totalmente diferente de cada lugar. Creo que es muy interesante. So, for those of you that don't speak Spanish, she says that the concern, the distraction for her is that every time she goes out to one of her recons, she comes back from her recon and she has a picture, a panorama view of the search, of the search location each time than she had the previous time. So she adds to the panorama, and we agree with that principle. We think the more time you spend at the more time that you spend at a search location, the more likely it is that you're going to get a broader understanding. It's very interesting that she uses the Spanish word panorama totalmente, meaning each time she gets like you're filling in the puzzle pieces of this massive panorama. That's a very good description. So, Patricia, nosotros también. Seamankification, interesting observation on number 5. Perhaps this is why Fenn doesn't want to say it was 70 or 80 when he hid the treasure. I don't remember why it's number 5. I need to go back. Let me go see what number 5 is real quick. Hold on.
Should have wrote them down so we'd have notes.
You can ford a river in a sedan if it's August and the sedan is a 4x4. So I think the number 5, that being number 5, Sea Monkey, is probably irrelevant because he drove, right? Whether he was 70 or 80, he had to drive and he had to make some accommodations. And honestly, fording a river like the Rio de los Pinos in August when it's at its lowest point, and doing it as long as your sedan is 4-wheel drive, doesn't make any difference how old you are if you have the confidence. So he had the confidence to drive. You know, we saw in that 2006 video where he would have been 76, right? He would have been 76 in that 2006 video, and he was a confident older driver. You know, he was driving all the way to Cody several times a year, he claimed. So that indicates to me that he has a lot of confidence as a driver, and so fording a river in a 4-wheel drive that he had probably done dozens, if not hundreds of times before, because it's a great fishing area, would have been like, you know, each time we go across, it's like, oh, let's just go across the river. It isn't a big deal. It's just going across the river, especially at this location, which is forded by, you know, again, dozens or hundreds of people every year. And we didn't find any dead bodies or destroyed vehicles. You know, it's just driving across the river in this case.
And for him, come on, he flew how many different kinds of planes?
Yeah, exactly.
And he even told us that one of the planes he flew was one of the most difficult planes out there to even land. And he was, you know, lived through that. He enjoyed it. So a little adventure is probably just what he loves.
Alan, he asks, are you going to sneak in a few questions while filming Fenn Collected Works? We have been, I have never done that. I never found it appropriate. I did it once at Moby Dickens, and I think we were both offended by it, honestly. I was offended as he was. So, but we've also been told that this is very much about the raffle drawing, and this is the second one of these raffle drawings, third one of these raffle drawings we've done. We did, the one for Rennell Jacobson, and we did the one for the Santa Fe Children's Museum, and this is all about the raffle drawing. He doesn't want to talk about search questions. I can tell you that.
Although it is K-Pro who's running the show.
Yeah. So K-Pro's running the show.
We can't
We're
speak
not.
for her.
So who knows what will happen? She may try and sneak one in there, but
he may suddenly become deaf when that happens. Yeah. So I wouldn't count on too much.
You can when he turns to Shiloh. And he says, "What'd she say?" Then you know he doesn't want to have anything to do with it.
Because then Shiloh will make something up. Oh, she said you look handsome today.
Yeah, exactly.
I do, don't I?
Yeah. Confused is a great start. Consider small scale solution from the put in, but somewhere larger from the no. We think it's.
This is to BH.
BH. We think a small scale solution is. The less than 1,000 feet from where you park your car, take your treasure chest out of the trunk, and go hide it. That's how small we think it is.
DJ Novatek is here.
Hey, we haven't seen him for a while.
That's what he says. And we have a cha-ching from Jan Schultz.
Jan Schultz, I hear that it's not in Yellowstone area. Why? So Jan, that's a matter of opinion. Some people believe strongly, including people like Dale Neitzel and Cynthia Meacham, who are longtime searchers, have been in it for longer than I have, believe that it's in Yellowstone. We are of the opinion not that it is not in Yellowstone, but that it is in New Mexico. So, but that's strictly everybody's opinion. And there, Jan, as you'll probably find out, there are 350,000 people looking for the treasure, and there are almost an equal number of opinions on where the treasure is. The advantage we all have is it's not been found. So
Davio says, do you think clues are 1 to 1, or are they in layers? Blaze to something, to the next thing, next thing.
We do think that and Fenn has told us that the clues are continuous, and our impression is that you can contact the next clue from the last, so that if you're at where warm waters halt and canyon down, you can get a feeling for not far but too far to walk, home of Brown kind of thing. So yeah, that's the other advantage to small scale solutions, is that you can keep in contact with the poem and the continuity of the clues. Where if you're driving, like I said, 40 miles between your where warm waters halt and home of Brown, you've got a lot of territory to cover and a lot of decisions to make.
In which case, the blaze would lead you directly to the treasure, and it shouldn't be that far apart that you couldn't see it or find
exactly.
it from the blaze.
So, Mitzi says she's a thrift store junkie too. That's where she's always talking about savers and the money that she saves.
Well, yeah, and they have 50% off at least once a month. They have a 50% off sale, and so it's just, hey, it's cheap. You can buy a whole new wardrobe for under $100.
So Jono doesn't have a question. He says, AGK, I learned so much on this Boots of the Ground. Jono was spent, I think, at least a month here with his family from the UK. And he says, I learned so much on this Boots on the Ground. You can place yourself anywhere in these mountains, meaning the Rocky Mountains, and convince yourself there's a blaze over there. The finder is going to be more certain. Agreed. You're going to have a sense of what Fenn means. You've got to understand what Fenn imagines when he uses the phrase "the blaze." That was not intended to be a poetic thing there.
Michael Ringler says, I believe that halt is significant. And as I said, I thought so as well, because it doesn't rhyme, for one thing. If it's not a dam...
Oh, gosh. I don't know what it did, sorry.
If it's not a dam, then what other options do you consider? I like the outside of Yellowstone example you gave. Outside, I'm not sure what that is, but while we were there at Osher Station, of course, I pointed out that they have the water tower, and that sometimes that was associated with a halt, because where a train stops to pick up water, it can be called a halt. So if you considered that the Osher Station, there's a little homestead there that's Brown, if that's the home of Brown, and the water tower is where warm waters halt, and then you take the canyon down, that could be one of the things that might fit.
Yeah.
As something besides the state line where warm waters halt.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Shelley, we were at Osher, and we were waiting to go down into the canyon, and we made a potty stop at the station. And Shelley was coming back, and she said, "You know what?" And she started pointing out the solution. Right? She just there on the Osher Station, including the canyon down and things like that. So the other interesting thing about a small scale solution is you get a lot more opportunities for imagining what the solution is. A large scale solution, like I said, if you're going from Ojo Caliente to Tres Piedras, there's not a lot of imagination involved. There's a lot more confusion. But when you're doing a small scale solution, and I think you get a lot more opportunities to try things out, even if you happen to be in an area that and which you're repeating your visit.
We got a $5 super chat.
From where? Oh,
Tappy tap.
From Jan Schultz.
Jan Schultz.
Jan Schultz. Do you and Shelley have an agreement if one of you finds the treasure while searching together? Yes, the agreement is that we split the treasure. we split the. Jan, we put out a video a long time ago about what we're going to do if we find the treasure, and that very specifically defines kind of what we're working with. If we find it, we're gonna monetize it as quickly as we can, whatever way is easiest to monetize, and we're gonna pay taxes and split the proceeds. So yeah, it's a partnership in the truest sense of the word. AGK, do you believe that wise is important in the poem? Yes, I do believe that the word wise is important because wise is one of those words that is defined by Fenn. I don't know if it relates to owl, fire, etc., but it implies that there's something. If you've been wise, the implication is that you would have had to have been wise about something. The question is, what is the something that you need to be wise about? But I do believe it's one of the most significant words in the poem. In your interview, he said that he wanted to tell people about his life, but he never talks about sports, music, or movies. Well, I think, I don't want to say that Fenn has led an uninteresting life. He's led an interesting life, but it's been very specific in things. You know, there was the period that revolves around Temple and Yellowstone before he was in the military. Then there's the military. Then there's the interest that he carried throughout life in ancient artifacts. Then there's books and writing. I mean, the things, I'm not a big sports guy. I played sports in college and I coached girls soccer for 17 years. But I rarely talk about sports only because I don't watch sports. I have no interest in it. I don't understand the concept of watching other men play something when I can be out doing something. So
I don't know what interview he's referring to, but I have heard him talk about music.
Yeah.
And actors in movies,
Right.
and so it depends on the questions he's asked.
Yeah, if the question you asked is, do I find it interesting? I do not, only because each of us has a different perspective on how we define our lives, and I don't think it necessarily means anything that his life doesn't include some of those characteristics. If I talk to my son-in-law Patrick, it's all about sports. He was a baseball player. And he was a University of Tennessee Volunteers fan, and his weekends with my daughter and my granddaughter are all about the Marlins, the Vols. He has 2 TVs in his living room, 2 huge 52-inch TVs in his living room, and if you walk in there on any day, I used to have to fight to watch news, not fight, but they're tuned to sports, and then he's sitting there with his laptop communicating with people who are talking about fantasy football, et cetera. So, yeah, that's his thing. I don't think it is Finn's. So,
Jono says, off the back of that, I think we'll realize we need to share more as a community to move us on to the next step. We're all missing something.
Well, and that's what we try to do with things like this, Jono. What you saw today are our opinions. We don't want to force them on anybody. We don't want to say that if you don't do these things, you're not going to find the treasure. These are simply our opinions, and we think by sharing them, maybe some people, our viewers will gain some new insight into their solution, and that they didn't have before. We think that's what it's going to take. We call it crowd solving, and we think there's a lot of potential for that. We think there's a great deal of potential for this problem to eventually be crowd solved. So.
That's the only thing we haven't tried yet.
Okay. So my problem is I can't see the bar here. Jonah Jones. Okay, Jen Schultz. Let's see. She told Forrest this morning that next boots on the ground, she's going on a picnic.
Well, Mr. Winger says the task at hand becomes immensely more complex when the poem was written after the location of the treasure was chosen by Mr. Fenn rather than vice versa.
Yeah, we agree.
Michael Ringler says he's from Chase, Michigan, lived near
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Fenville and used to
Fenville.
and used to live in Santa Fe. How am I not destined to find it? Fenville. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no. Let's see. How do I get back? I can't see the bar. Okay.
I
I can now. But when it gets down there, it kind of disappears. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to leave it right there, right now.
I don't see any questions.
Oh, Craig says, thank you for live streaming the upcoming 6th September event. You're welcome, Craig. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
I'm at the bottom.
Okay, that's it.
Oh, okay.
Unless you got anything else. So it's just scrolling up at its own pace now.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to leave it alone, let it do its own thing. Well, you guys it's really neat that what you're doing is just kind of sharing these ideas with one another.
Paul Ammon says, what's your thoughts on the clues being abstract to what they seem to say, and if your thoughts are searching in the mountains, it's the wrong place to start?
So that's more than one question, Paul. Let me see if I can answer. We think that the clues are abstract in the sense that they are metaphors for something in Fenn's imagination. So it's like taking something that's very adult in nature, calculator, for example, and I'm just doing that because there's one sitting on my desk, and showing it to a child and say, "What's this?" And they could say everything from an alligator, mispronouncing it, or what they imagine it to be, right? Or if you pick up one of their toys and you say, you know, a lot of times I remember watching my children play, and they were using toys to represent something else in their play. And so in Fenn's case, what he sees is let's use the blaze as an example, what do you call it? A strain, not a strain, but a line of quartz. What do they call it? A vein of quartz and a granite rock, and in his imagination that turns into a blaze. So that's why I keep saying the more that we know about Fenn and his imagination, the more likely it is we're going to figure out what he means when he uses the blaze as that abstraction, whatever it is, whether it's a physical abstraction, a metaphor, or how did you refer to it? Abstract. So he's abstracting these real objects. We know that they're real because that's the only way that you can find the treasure. So what he's done is he's abstracted those real objects into how his imagination sees them. So what you have to figure out, and that's I think one of our top 10 things we learned is the real meaning of them is only known by Fenn, and going out and pointing at things and saying that looks like a blaze to me is not the solution. You have to figure out what Fenn imagined when he used the phrase the blaze.
JRH says, I just bought Fenn's books. I guess I'll join the search after I read them. Well, according to Fenn, you only need to read The Thrill of the Chase and the poem. So you could start right after you read that one if you'd like.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah, Jan, that's an interesting thing, because what you can do is you can say, and we do this all the time when we're traveling. I really like talking to people when we're traveling around in the various areas at which we're looking at the treasure, and I ask them if I were to say to you, the home of Brown, what comes to your mind? You know, or if I were to say to you that warm water's halt someplace in this area, what do you think of when that happens? Because I think that's the key to all this. I think if you don't do that, then you come to serious conclusions about what each of those are, and they may or not match with what Fenn imagines. We're actually planning a show on this topic of understanding what Fenn means by the things. Not that we've come to any conclusion about them, but kind of how to figure it out. Because I think if we don't figure out what they mean to Fenn, we don't figure out what this is. What, what did he mean? What did his imagination envision when he decided to use the word, the phrase, the blaze?
Well, Hexstar says, do you feel by Forrest stating it's going to take the imagination of a child to solve his poem, does that mean he found his spot during a time in his life of imagination, a time of his own youth?
So we're kind of the answer to those. The answer is no and no, but let me explain why. So I don't think conversing with a child is going to help you get closer to the treasure. I think thinking with the simplicity of a child, like I said, when you hold up, I don't know, something that a child wouldn't immediately recognize, something that's part of the adult world, a hairdryer, right? And you hold that up to a child and you ask them, "What's that?" They'll give you a childlike answer. They'll give you their interpretation of what it is. Now, at the same, and that's one thing. But if you were to say to them, "What do you think of when you hear the phrase the blaze?" I don't think that's comprehension. I don't think they understand what you're asking and why you're asking it. And what they need is something tangible. If you took them out in the field and you said, "Go find the blaze," they would look for a fire, because that's the extent of their imagination right now. They're not going to look for markings on trees. They're not going to look for veins of quartz in a granite wall, etc., etc. But I think what he means when he says it is that childlike, to think like a child in the context of the simplicity of it. And maybe very much a lot of these impressions were gained as a child. Maybe when he saw that vein of quartz the first time, it reminded him of the white blaze on a pony, and so he made that connection, the blaze, that it was a white vein of quartz, and it reminded him immediately of that white blaze on the forehead of a pony, and so to him it was the blaze. And that's the kind of analysis that I think, I know we're not doing all the time. We're so focused on the translation of Where Warm Waters Halt and Home of Brown and things like that, instead of thinking to ourselves, imagining to ourselves, what is it that Fenn would have imagined in order to come up with that metaphor for the description of that physical location? And that's a conversation we want to have more and more. Okay,
I think
that's
good and
it.
done. And
Yeah.
it's 57.
Has to be worked out from the poem. Throw the chase can't be linked back, then it can't be right from what Fenn has said. We're done. Okay. Well, that's just a comment. So that's just the first book. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's go back to the slides.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, I went back.
Oop, too far. There we go.
Too far to walk.
There we go. Okay. So tomorrow night, Wednesday, September 5th, we have something new and different for you that's not as new as all that. I don't know how to describe it. But because we are going, especially Toby's going to be getting real busy with putting the equipment package together for Thursday, what we're going to do instead of a regular panel on Wednesday night, we're having an encore presentation of Fenn at Moby Dickens. We will be screening the video, and the chat room will be open and available for people to make comments. So we thought, as we just mentioned in the chat today, that crowd solving is very helpful with coming up with new ideas and solutions, and weeding out those that just don't work. When you're watching this video, you can make comments about what Fenn is talking about, what it sparks for you, and hopefully that will help us to move ahead even more in the crowd solving.
Yeah. And because we won't be around, it'll be easy to launch. There's actually a tool called onestream.live that enables us to do this without being around the computer. It actually generates the video into the live stream for us. So we just thought it would be a fun thing to do. You guys will have the opportunity to pretend like you're sitting at Moby Dickens that day that recorded the conversation. You'll hear some of the other comments. I'm sure that by now all of you have probably seen this video more than once, but I think it was a fun opportunity to put it in the chat room and let people play around with it, see what happens. Who knows? Crowd solving at its best.
That's
So
right.
enjoy. We may do, depending on how people feel about it. We may do more of these. We think the Collected Works video might be a good one. Certainly the Lorene Mills interview video might be a good one. And as Davio has suggested already, the Cody Museum interview, that we just put it in the chat room and not make it a presentation, just watch it and go chat at it, I guess. So we'll see. Like I said in my lineup video yesterday, it could be a big bust. Or it could be the best thing that we've thought of recently. But we are going to be, as I've said the past week or so, we are going to be making changes to the channel in a positive way. We're adding some new properties to the channel, and we'll be sharing those with you in the upcoming weeks. And we think that you're going to like them. I'd like to think that we hope you're going to like them, I guess.
And then, of course, on Thursday, we won't be doing the book club at 1 o'clock. Instead, Toby will be live streaming the Jamie Jordan raffle drawing from Collected Works Bookstore at 2 p.m. And the chat room will be open for everybody to comment and ask questions or just talk to each other in the chat room as well. Then on 1 p.m. Friday, we'll have another It's All About You interview, number 11. And that's on Friday, September 7th, released at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. In between, Thursday night, I'll be doing my show live from the softer side. And I hope that you'll join me and Toby for that as well. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your questions and comments, and
Oops.
enjoying all of our...
I didn't have the slides up when you were talking about the upcoming week. Do I need to go back and do that?
No,
Okay.
they're not interested.
They're talking about something else.
Yeah, they're whatever.
Whatever.
So, okay. So be there all week. Lots of fun, exciting stuff going on. Thank you for being here today. And for A Gypsy's Kiss, the vlog, I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Eunice. We won't see you tomorrow night, but we will see you on Thursday at the Collected Works Bookstore in Santa Fe, live streaming the Jamie Jordan raffle drawing. So tune in at least to find out what the total number was. Mike said he was going to announce Mike Calazars on YouTube announced that he was going to, told us that he was going to announce the final figure on Thursday. So it should be a lot of fun. All right. We look forward to seeing you guys there. And here's an Osher outro for you.